And to start with that, it's important to know who your competitors are. There are different types of competitors, and we'll start with the direct competitors. So these are usually the ones who are trying to get the same customers. They're trying to steal customers from you. They're using very similar solution to you. They're targeting a very similar targeting a similar customer segment to you. They're basically the same product executed differently. So if your company were to die, if you were to be not successful, then those direct competitors, they would probably completely absorb your customers. So that's also the ones that you can look at stealing customers from. So the things that they're doing, they're probably quite important for you to also do, because if your competitor is doing something, your customers' expectations might change and say, oh, this competitor, this other app is doing this, but what I'm currently using is not allowing me to do that. So let me switch. Or they could be undercutting you with pricing, or they're basically trying to steal your competition. They're trying to steal your customers every day. So it's very important to keep looking at them. The second type are the indirect competitors. That's companies or products or businesses that are addressing the same need, but they solve it differently. They solve the problem with different products or services than you. So let's say you're Spotify, and what you're solving is audio entertainment. Direct competitor would be Apple Music. An indirect competitor would be a radio, for example, radio channels. You're still solving similar problems, but the target market between the two of you are quite different. So then you go to them, you can still learn from them, but you're not necessarily as worried about them stealing your customers. So whatever they're doing, you might want to take it with a grain of salt. But let's say if you see a trend, if you're Spotify and you see a trend in radio shows, maybe they're starting a new content format, then you could actually learn from that and copy that. Then the third option are potential competitors. These are competitors who also do the same thing you do, and they're targeting the same kind of customers, but they are not selling in your market area, and they're not likely to do so. So they could become easily your direct competition if they decided to enter your geographical area, but they're currently not there. So let's say, what is an example? Like Netflix now is a global company, but they started out as quite Europe and North America centric. And while Netflix was growing in that Western market, in, for example, Southeast Asia, there was a company called iFlix that really, really grew. And they were then basically potential competitors to each other. But once Netflix adopted a global strategy and started producing content specifically for the Southeast Asian market, suddenly, poof, iFlix is gone. They ate them up. They became direct competitors. Netflix won. Actually, true story. Potential competitors can also be companies that operate in your geographical location, but they're not in your category, but they could potentially enter. So one thing that, taking Netflix again as an example, one thing that was in the news recently is that they're looking to get into the mobile games market. Like they want to use their intellectual property and start producing games for that and put it in their app store. So suddenly, so that means Netflix right now is a potential competitor to gaming companies, but they could become a direct competitor. And the last type is the substitute competitor, which are those who provide an alternative to the service that you offer, solves the same pain points. So it's similar to the indirect, but how to put it? Like if there's more than one way to solve the problem that you solve with your business, you might have a substitute competitor. So where we're saying for indirect competitor is the radio for Spotify, still kind of like this idea of streaming music, even though radio streams it over radio waves and Spotify streams it over the internet. A substitute competitor could then be any non-streaming media, like CDs, MP3 files. It's not really being used a lot, but maybe you are in a situation where you don't have internet and you don't have radio, then the only thing that will work for you will be CDs or MP3 files. A different example for substitute competitors could also be if you take the example of food ordering, like we all use a lot of food ordering apps. A substitute competitor could be then a grocery store, because in the end, it's serving the need of getting food, but like the channel and the way you solve the problem is so completely different. But still, you can learn from it. And that wraps up our different types of competitors. And what's important to know is basically who are those important competitors for you to look at. So knowing competitors basically allows you to research and categorize them and have a good overview of the competitive landscape.